Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive. This week, I continue my series talking about the Star Wars games by talking about Fantasy Flight's 3 Star Wars RPGs: Edge of Empire, Age of Rebellion, and Force and Destiny. Now, these 3 all use the same basic system. There are some minor differences between them, but overall, it's the same system. In fact, you are able to interact and exchange some stuff between them fairly freely, and some stuff is in one system but not another, but you might want it in characters on another system for whatever reasons. The big difference between them is the difference of obligation, duty, and morality, which I will talk about as we talk about the system. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I talk about Fantasy Flight Star Wars. The core system for Fantasy Flight's Star Wars system is also mostly the system they use for their GeneSys system and a modified version for their Legend of the Five Rings RPG. This is a system that works on a principle of you have an attribute, you have a skill. Each of these give you dice. You look at the higher number of dice for these, and then you upgrade based on the lower of the dice. And you use difficulty dice for your difficulty. These can be upgraded, and you don't have numbers. That is where these are very different from other systems' dice. Instead, you have symbols. These symbols have different meanings. Successes are straight up successes. Failures are failures and negate successes. Advantages are advantages. It's something in addition to success. Threats are things that cancel out advantages. They're things that you might succeed, but bad things still happened type result. Of course, failures are failures and they negate successes. Then you have the 2 special ones: triumph and despair. Triumph are things that it's not just a success, it's something spectacular, and can often be used to literally change the scene itself. Despairs are worse than a failure. They're things going horribly, horribly wrong. And you can use a despair to cancel a triumph, or you can use a triumph to cancel a despair, or you can keep them both. That's where the storytelling gets interesting. But how it works is you will roll the dice, and you'll get results telling you if you succeed or fail, if you got advantages or if you got threats in it, if you got triumphs or despairs, and then you tell the story of what that roll meant. A great example in one of my more recent games: player was in one turret. Player was in another turret. The player in the bottom turret missed the enemy completely, but he got a crap load of advantages. So what he did was he converted those into boost die to give to the guy in the other turret. And he explained it as, I wasn't trying to hit him. What I was doing was I was directing him so that he would fly right into our main gunner's line of fire. And that's how they explained it. And that's pretty much how the system works. Now, the three systems have their own little quirk of a motivating factor scale. Edge of Empire has obligation. And basically what this means is your character has something that keeps them out there. Maybe they have a contract with someone. Maybe they're hunted or wanted. Any number of things. And when that obligation comes up, the bounty hunters hunting you are going to show up somehow. Or you're going to get notified by the person who has you under contract that, hey, I need you to go here and do this for me this week. And this puts you under a level of strain. It basically gives you one decrease to your strain threshold, which is your mental stress. And you deal with it, and that's pretty much it. For Age of Rebellion, you have duty. And duty is a fun little mechanic. What duty represents is your job within the rebellion, or within the Imperial military, or whatever. And as you get your combined party duty threshold up to 100, because as you do things, your duty goes up. As your party duty threshold hits 100, you get bonuses. These could be ships. These could be rare or difficult to get equipment. These can be strategic assets. Like, maybe you have access to a spy network now that can get you information, or stuff like that. And then, once you've selected your reward, your duty resets to 0. And when your duty resets to 0, you then start building up, but your contribution rank has gone up. What that means is your cell, or your squad, gets access to people it didn't have access to before. And maybe people on the other side start hearing about you a little bit more. And that's how that works. The next group is Force and Destiny, which is morality. And this one is kind of interesting. First off, these provide motivating factors for you. Your positive morality and your weakness. Your virtue and your vice, sort of thing. And these are in constant conflict. When you give in to your vice, that actually gives you conflict. As you give in to your virtue, that reduces conflict. So when you make the roll when you roll a d10 at the end of the session, if you score low, your morality goes down. If you score high, your morality goes up. And when your morality hits either plus 70 or minus 70, that starts affecting where you fit on the whole light-dark tree. And what ends up happening with this is just, if you are below a certain threshold, you start adding an extra dark side point to the destiny pool. If you're above a certain point, you automatically add a light side point to the destiny pool. And yes, the destiny pool. So, basically you roll a force die at the beginning of every session. Each player. And they add the result to the destiny pool. Light side destiny points can be used to upgrade a die, to change an event, add something to the setting, and sometimes are used to power certain talents. Of course, once you use a light side destiny pool point, you flip it over into a dark side destiny point. And everything you can do with a light side destiny point, the GM can do the opposite. So the GM can upgrade your difficulty, but he can also upgrade the dice roll of one of his mooks, and a number of things like that. And basically it amounts to dark side destiny points are being spent by the GM, and then they're flipped over to light side. And so there should be this interchange between the two, because the GM wants the players to be taking the risks that come with spending those destiny points, because that's making it an interesting and heroic game. At the same time, he wants to make things challenging for them, so he wants to sort of up the ante, and that's when he'll be spending the dark side destiny points. A GM who doesn't spend dark side destiny points is basically screwing with his players. A GM who doesn't encourage the players to spend light side destiny points is keeping it out of being fun for the players. At least this is my view on it. Others might disagree, but this is how I see it, and what I had actually heard from Fantasy Flight GMs at Gen Con and other conventions. Okay, mostly Gen Con. Actually, only Gen Con. But combat and most skill checks pretty much are the same. It's you roll versus a difficulty. The difficulty is generally determined by, is it a melee attack? Well, that's this difficulty. Is it a range attack? Well, what's your range at? Range determines the difficulty. And then equipment that the target character has, or various abilities that they have, can either upgrade the difficulty or add negative dice. Add setback dice. So these are pretty much it. Everything works pretty much the same way. Now, let's take a bit and let's talk about character creation. So, the first thing we have to do with talking about the character creation is take a quick talk about the abilities or attributes. These are brawn, agility, intellect, cunning, willpower, and presence. Brawn is a representative both of how strong you are and how tough you are. Agility is both representing overall bodily agility and coordination, and small scale hand-eye coordination. Intellect is general academic knowledge. Cunning is, cunning. It's, how good you are at making use of stuff around you. It's used for things like stealth as well as streetwise and things like that. Willpower is how strong of will you are, how stubborn, how easy it is for you to be manipulated, intimidated, or for someone to use the Force and mess around with your mind. Presence is, well, other games would call it charisma. It's how much of a inspiring presence you are, or intimidating presence, or just how much you are you. Your force of personality, all that. Now, when you pick your species, most species work like this. They bump one of these attributes up to 3, and one is dropped down to 1. Humans have all of them at the baseline of 2. And this is your starting point. From there, your species gives you a certain number of experience points that you use to buy your attributes up and down, or buy your attributes up, buy any extra skills from your career path, or that you really feel you need for your character concept, buy any talents. If you are playing a Force-sensitive character, buying any Force powers. Each species generally has a special ability, and most usually have a free rank in some skill. And then they'll have some other sort of special ability, like the Togruta. When performing an assist maneuver, they grant 2 advantage dice, 2 boost dice instead of 1. And every species has something like that. Those that give you a free rank in a skill usually have a stipulation that you cannot raise that skill above 2. There is one species that explicitly says you can raise the skill above 2. And that is Corellian humans with the piloting skill, either piloting space or piloting planetary, that they grant you. Which pretty much explicitly states that Corellian humans are the best pilots in the galaxy. Simply because they get that bonus. Because they're the only species that can start with a 3 in a specific skill. Which is awesome. It's an awesome bit of fluff there that's translated in. Now then, you spend all those XP. So that's how you build your character. And then you get a choice. For those using Edge of Empire, you can increase your obligation to give you either, increasing it by 5 points gets you either 1,000 credits worth of gear or 5 XP. And you can do both of those. Or you can do one increase of 10 XP, as 10 to your obligation, to give yourself either 10 XP or 2,500 credits in equipment. For Age of Rebellion, you get the option. You can lower your starting duty by 5 and give yourself the benefits of increasing obligation by 5. Or you can reduce it by 10 and get the benefits of increasing obligation by 10. For Force and Destiny, you just outright get these choices. 5 XP and 1,000 extra credits worth of equipment. 10 XP and 10 XP or 2,500 credits in equipment. Or you can raise or lower your morality by 21. And this should theoretically put you into the threshold area where your character gets the benefits of being fully light side or fully dark side. And yes, there are some benefits with that. You always want to use those. But that is character creation. In short, one thing you do have to pick, the rough area out of this, is you have to pick your career and your specialization. And your career gives you a set number of skills from a list, and then your specialization gives you a smaller number of skills from another list. And these combine, and it's like if you take something that gives you piloting and then another thing that takes you piloting, you can start off with piloting it too. Or if you take something that gives you gives you pistol skill, and another thing that gives you pistol skill, you can start off with pistols too, without having to spend any of your starting XP on that. You can buy extra specializations, and they don't have to be in your career. The only thing you get buying one of these is you get the benefit of all the skills associated with that specialization, not its parent career, but just that specialization, are now considered career skills for you. And so those cost less. And that's something to remember. As you buy skills up, it's 5 times the rating you're going for in the skill. Non-career skills cost a flat extra 5 XP. So, you're saving 25 XP on a career, making something a career skill that wasn't a career skill before. But that is character creation in a quick, easy to understand nutshell. It's simple, it's straightforward, and it does have a little bit of choices involved. Like, you're going to spend those points on talents, or you're going to spend them on skills, or you're going to spend them on your attributes. How are you going to spend them out? But that is it for Fantasy Flight Star Wars. Next week, I'm going to talk about the Star Wars card game that was released a number of years ago. So until then, I want you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.